I wasn't planning on doing this video, but given how much I love this series, I felt a little obligated. The No More Heroes games are some of my favorites, if the entire video I did on the two games and the other times I referenced it didn't clue you into that. So when a new No More Heroes game was announced at the Switch event, I was so excited. Granted, I was a little less excited when it was said it wouldn't be the third game, but I was still excited. Being its own thing can make things more creative without having to strongly tie into the main plot of the series. However, as more info came out, I was starting to worry more and more. It seemed to try too much to be something different solely to be different, which could work, but, well, I'll explain. So the story starts when Badman, father of previous series boss Badgirl, making this the umpteenth time a new boss is getting revenge for the death of a previous boss, tries to track down Travis. He finds him playing video games in a trailer. They fight for a bit, but are both eventually sucked into the prototype console, the Death Drive Mark II. They must now work together to complete all the games and find out the mystery of the game console's origin. As for anyone asking where the Death Drive Mark I is, I don't know, something, let it die. So the story is a mixed bag. I'm not expecting anything big for Travis, so that's fine. But I did expect more from Badman, given that he kicks off the game's plot. His revenge tale is pushed to the side until a gag, and the very end of the game brings it back. Besides revenge, his other goal is to revive his daughter, which becomes his main focus when killing Travis isn't really an option. That's fine, but it doesn't really resolve itself, which seems to either be set up for DLC or No More Heroes 3, which irks me to no end. Can we stop sequel baiting in things that we may not be too sure of getting a sequel? When this game was first announced, I heard rumors that it took place between 1 and 2, which I thought was fantastic. It gives us an explanation as to how Travis escaped the rankings, and it gives a good enough time frame for Badman to hunt down Travis. Unfortunately, that's not the case. It takes place 7 years after 2, which you can tell due to small little details and the fact that Travis has a scar now. But that means that Badman took 10 years to find out his daughter was dead and to track down Travis. 10 years! Even if you aren't in contact with family members as much, I feel that it wouldn't take that long to find that kind of info out. Badman feels underdeveloped, which is a bit sad. Travis does get a bit of his own story details too, but it's kept small, which is fine. There's a quick mention about Travis having a wife and a kid, and he is away from them, not for relaxation, but because they're constantly in danger from assassins trying to kill him, which wasn't really explained well in the game. I had to look it up. That makes sense and adds more to Travis' shitty life, but I just wish it was slightly clearer. However, as for the main plot, besides some unexplained moments here or there, it's alright. It deals with the unfinished console that not only has balls in place of cartridges that when gathered together grant a wish, but the console has quite the history with the government as well. Quick spoilers in
3, 2, 1.
While not the original intention as to why it was developed, the console and the games are being used by the CIA to make soldiers think adversaries are just enemies in a game, and to kill them with no sympathy and desensitize soldiers to the violence. That's scarily relevant. Each game has a mini-plot of their own, and they all tie into the console developer's goal to just create awesome games. The characters in these games all have reasoning and motivations, and are surprisingly human despite being code. In series tradition, they wax philosophy with Travis before and after the fight, and although the writing is as strong as ever, it doesn't feel as impactful given the weak boss memorability in this game, which I will cover later. Dr. Juvenile's whole plot, if you can figure it out, is really well done and is the main draw of the story. Without going into spoilers though, the ending is weird and a big what the fuck moment in many regards, and because of the DLC / new game bait, feels incomplete. Like, obviously the game ends, but it doesn't feel like it. Also, Jean talks now. Yup. Moving on. There are also visual novel sections in the game, which are meant to explain how Travis gets each death ball, but mostly to have a shit ton of references to other Suda and Grasshopper games. Given the main game doesn't have too much dialogue, this is where the writing and the humor come in, and boy is the humor still on point. Suda still knows how to write Travis, even if he lost his loser status. How can I relate to him now if he isn't a loser anymore? It is a bit random and implies that all Grasshopper games take place in the same world, which hurts my head more than Killer is Dead's plot, but it's fun and funny, so it's fine. This game is also stupidly meta. No More Heroes has always had meta humor and fourth wall breaking jokes, but given that Travis actually travels into games now, the jokes now have a lot of double uses. While some jokes are obviously self-deprecation on Travis Strikes Again, some of the game design and development talk could be used both for the games Travis travels through, as well as Travis Strikes Again, and just other games in general. The game jabs at how game design works and the industry works, both in-universe and out-of-universe at the same time. Leave it to Suda to have jokes be legit commentary on an entire industry that his career hinges on. Both a genius and an idiot. So the story has ups and downs. Batman has great setup, but terrible follow-through and loses relevancy. But the main plot is interesting, both in-universe and in a meta way, with great commentary as always. The graphics are fine. No More Heroes always had fairly okay graphics, and nothing has really changed. Environments look fine. Not too much to say. You do get some good aesthetics occasionally, but nothing mind-blowing, which again, not expecting anything huge. The character models, though, I think are very well done. It really looks like an HD upgrade of No More Heroes 1's graphics, cool shadow placement and all. Not like the way the PS3 version handled it, like a legit upgrade. Faithful, yet updated. The gameplay is where I have the biggest issue with this game. Now let me be clear. No More Heroes has never had the most complex or deep combat. It was always fairly basic, but there were other aspects that came together to make it all work. In this game though, it is even more basic than before. You have a weak attack and a strong attack. High attack and low attacks are gone, which makes sense since motion controls aren't needed for this game, but charge attacks are gone too. Okay then, so it's going for a more simple system, which is fine, since this is meant to be a more simple game, but it's a bit too simple. Every attack animation feels good, is satisfying, and looks like a top-down version of a traditional No More Heroes attack animation, except for the weak attack. In my opinion, the basic weak attack is a big flaw in the gameplay. For an experienced assassin like Travis, it seems like a clumsy move that someone learning how to use a sword for the first time would do. I guess it makes sense since it keeps momentum and allows hit and run tactics, but later in the game it feels almost useless on stronger enemies. It is only satisfying when there are a bunch of weak enemies blocking your path and you wipe them out easily, a la Warriors games. But that is only satisfying for so long. It doesn't help that even if it is a smaller game, the moveset doesn't ever change. You can attack after a roll or a jump, which have their unique uses, which helps, but that weak attack is the biggest problem with this game. Oh yeah, Travis can jump now. Glad Shinobu taught him how to use his hops. Ironically, he is better at platforming than her. There is variety in the gameplay though. Both Batman and Travis have super moves that build up when you hit enemies and avoid getting hit yourself. They can go up to 3 levels and are great for crowd control, and they do a lot of damage. There are also equipable skills, which brings variety to the gameplay and are really fun and varied. The problem is that since your weak attack is, well, weak, and your strong attack moves so slow that you'll get hit harder than the damage you dish out, you'll have to rely on these attacks a lot. As the Gaming Brit once said involving cooldown attacks,
a lot of the moves run on these MMO-style timers, so instead of using a variety of attacks and tricks in your moveset to be on the offensive at all times, a lot of playtime is just spent waiting for the super attack to recharge and your quick select or some buff to become active, and that just isn't dynamic, waiting for moves to come back.
One thing that the game could have benefited from is some sort of guard. When projectiles are coming at you often, jumping and rolling can only help so much. It was hard to tell if I can attack projectiles like Nier or not, so a guard would have helped. You can in the previous games, and enemies can, so why not Travis and Batman? It would help explain how you lose energy so fast at least. Actually, can I mention that really quick? Your beam katana energy drains stupidly fast in this game. I mean, it always did in previous games, but it never felt so constant. It became pretty annoying. The one thing that helps is that the logo used to show that you're out of energy looks like the Hentai Haven logo. Rest in peace, Hentai Haven. So most of the gameplay is good and fun, but a guard would have been nice, and there is something so off about the weak attack, and some other snags also hold it back. The level design varies in quality. It follows series tradition in that it is usually pretty basic, but there is a gimmick for each level to vary things up. Here, given the minimalist approach, levels are more corridor-like, but you always have exceptions that work sometimes while still having those gimmicks. For instance, there's a level that takes place in a mansion where you have to solve a mystery while the doors in the mansion lead to the levels. Another level has you navigate a maze and figure out the history of a mass murderer while an instant kill enemy follows you and pisses you off to no end since it can pass through walls and is an instant kill. God fuck! So the levels are alright, except the first level. That first level was so boring and uninspired that I started off hating the game and having very negative first impressions. Like I described, the variety gets better as the game goes on, but that first level almost made me quit immediately. The music in this game isn't quite on par with the others. There are some standout tracks here or there, but unless it is a remix or alternate version of the main No More Heroes theme, the soundtrack is forgettable. Most of them will be a bop for about a minute and annoying for the rest of the level. It's really a disappointment. The boss quality also varies. Some of the boss fights have great designs with interesting patterns and fun gameplay, while others have designs that are too busy and have attacks that can blindside you from off-screen. It doesn't help when the camera angle is stuck above you, making it difficult to see the boss and his attacks when they're off-screen. That's totally fair. Since this game likes indie games so much, why didn't you crib an idea from Fury? Have the camera on the boss the entire time, even if you are farther away. That way, we can still tell when an attack is oncoming, since we can see where the boss is and what he or she is doing at all times. A little red blotch on the side of the screen is not a good indicator. Some of the bosses may have interesting personalities, but beating them doesn't feel as satisfying as normal, since they are actual game characters and not people. The personal connection isn't there, and the fights overall feel more routine. The bosses just don't overall feel as memorable as previous series bosses, which is a shame given that boss fights are usually one of the main draws of the series. I will say though that the bosses are good tests of skill. They usually have attacks that the mini-boss shows off, so the player was exposed to this beforehand and are able to handle the main bosses, which is basic boss design, sure, but if it works, it works. So, some redeeming quality, sure, but the bosses are lackluster overall. Travis Strikes Again looks and acts like a No More Heroes game, but something is missing. Hopefully 3 can rectify that. This game isn't bad, but there are some pretty bland aspects to the game. It does help get me more excited for No More Heroes 3 though, so that's a plus, especially if that was the intention. I give this game a 6.5 out of 10. Get into the game. Literally. So the story is, Some of the game design and development talk could be used both for the games Travis travels through, as well as Travis Strikes Again, and just other games in general. The game jabs at how game design works, and the industry works both in-universe and out. This script, I don't know why, but this has been a pain in the ass to record this script. Ugh.